The other most influential interfaith organization is the largest interfaith organization, with over 600,000 members with cooperation circles in, I think, 83 countries, in the largest people's interfaith dialogue in the world right now, engaging millions of people all over the world. And there is a circle within it that includes former Secretary of State George Shultz, Ambassador James Goodby, Sidney Drell, and it was out of discussions that George Shultz had gathered that we felt that how important it would be to raise the moral banner, and that the creation of that interfaith network really has happened because of the courage and the vision and inspiration of its founder, Bishop William Swing. Bishop Swing.
Thank you, Jonathan. Question. Is this working?
Hit the thing in the lower left.
Here. Good. We're all together? Yeah. Good. Question. What do the following tragedies have in common? The Columbine High School shooting of April 1999. Number 2, the Virginia Tech mass killing of April 2007. The Boston Marathon bombing of April 2013. The Jewish Community Center murders of April 2014. What do they all have in common? And the answer isn't April. What do they all have in common? In each instance, there was an interfaith service that was held immediately for everyone together in these communities, just as there was an interfaith service here in New York at Yankee Stadium after 9/11. That interfaith fact deserves attention. Here we had religions with ancient feuds, and in many instances around the world today, deadly religious rivalries. Nevertheless, when entire communities here needed to grieve, they wanted all the religions to come together to allow that to happen. And the religions obliged. The arc of history regarding the predictability of religious competition was bending. Religions coming together discovered that they had a common vocation for the good of the total community. Therefore, communities across this nation had an interfaith resource to serve the common good both then and in the future. Today, we gather to take a further step. Our focus is on nuclear weapons. It would be absurd to imagine in the future an interfaith service after the nuclear holocaust, which has already been planned and triggered for this city, for instance. No faiths would be left to collect the mountainous grief. Just as the first strike of the weapons that are aimed on us today would annihilate around 280 million people. At least, that is how many human beings we have targeted today in other parts of the world with our first strike. And I assume there to be some sort of reciprocity in numbers. In the face of a catastrophic nuclear Armageddon or the possibility of suitcase bombs, or the prospect of rogue states with nuclear designs, or individual madness linked with black market fissile materials and all the retaliations that go with all of the above, what has interfaith got to do with these threats? Is the only vocation for interfaith a defensive one after the fact of tragedy, or is there something unique and helpful that the interfaith movement could do up front beforehand to challenge the nuclear assumptions that have gotten us to this moment? to humanize the calculations, to prompt believers in God to face up to the abominations that we conspire to commit. I would like to submit that the genius of interfaith is its ability to gather people of a wide range of differing and conflicting persuasions in order to do something creative and deeply needed for the total community. Translated into nuclear disarmament terms, I believe that the interfaith movement could mobilize and energize a far greater team of advocates than now exists. I was just this last week listening to the people from Plowshares, who say they get 90% of their funds from people who are over 65 years of age. Young people just do not care. I hear college professors and clergy say that young people are simply not interested in the nuclear issue. Yes, parliamentarians are doing their bit. Motivated policy people are stepping up to the plate. The quartet writes op-eds that catch momentary attention. Faiths and interfaith groups issue declarations of gravity and high purpose. Petitions are signed by tens of thousands, circulate from time to time, yet, when all is said and done, most every entity operates in a silo and doesn't touch the heart of the young people. We who are silent colleagues of one another simply do not work together and use our best gifts. I'm not advocating that we only coalesce the forces that presently exist, for instance, in this room. All of them are good and needed, and yes, we could come together and make a little more of a difference, but what I propose is that interfaith resources be used to unleash a much wider imagination, especially among young people. We need artists and filmmakers, hip-hoppers and storytellers. We need to point out that the nuclear issue is the environmental issue. We need to compete with apocalyptic movies to state that the apocalypse is not entertainment. It is a real threat that needs the good guys to overcome the bad guys. We need to mine the motherlode of stories of nuclear accidents and close calls and heroes and victims and nuclear greed and insane claims of security and the myth that a super race of people should decide who should be armed and who should be unarmed. We need to tell the whole truth about the financial price being paid and the length of the cleanup and who will be left holding the dump. We need to heed the scientists telling us about the Big Bang of creation and face up to the Big Bang that we're going to make that could smash the creation to destruction. We need to make this issue available to young people with all of the fear and all of the hope that accompanies nuclear possession and nuclear responsibility. And why? Because the people who control nuclear issues have full media range to tell their myths and mute the real figures and keep the voice of the people and the conscience of the people and the vote of the people far removed from difference-making. Why shouldn't we, the people, have a say in forming a more perfect union? We could if the door to reality and imagination about nuclear threat would be unlocked. I propose that the interfaith enterprise, which in many ways has been born in grief, might well be positioned to unlock the door to nuclear awareness among the young. It is high time for fresh air to come into that stale room of doom. Thank you.